In December of the year 1804, within the magnificent walls of Notre Dame Cathedral, Napoleon Bonaparte was declared emperor. A decade earlier, the young man, whose name was known only to his close circle, had rapidly ascended to the summit of Europe, becoming the new emperor of a recently restored France. Europe had never witnessed such a rise before. The years of revolution and the subsequent endless wars had paved his way, facilitating his achievement of the ultimate goal. However, under Napoleon's rule, France would not find peace. His ambitions and desires would turn the vast territories from the Atlantic to Russia into a virtual sea of blood, leaving millions of corpses behind when he eventually had to abdicate the imperial throne. To accomplish these grim events, the formation of the largest armies Europe had ever seen was a prerequisite. Indeed, the foundations of this army, later named La Grande Armée, had been laid shortly before Napoleon donned the crown. In 1803, at the port of Boulogne, an army named l'Armée des Quites de l'Ocean was established with the purpose of invading England. Napoleon's coronation as emperor in 1804 led to the entanglement of European politics and the formation of the Third Coalition against France. From that moment on, La Grande Armée, under the command of its chief, turned its face eastward. In late August, departing from the Boulogne camp, it besieged the Austrian forces led by General Karl Macadam. Here, Napoleon's Grande Armée faced its first trial and passed it successfully. The victory was so decisive that, in exchange for around 2,000 French military losses, approximately 60,000 Austrians were taken as prisoners. Moreover, the army continued its advance, capturing Vienna in November. Austria, having another army in the field, refused to surrender. Additionally, the Russians had not yet mobilized. The coalition nations believed that the war could continue for some time. Ultimately, the fate of Europe was determined on December 2, 1805, in the Battle of Austerlitz. Despite being numerically weak, the Grande Armée, with superior equipment and experience, routed the Russian-Austrian army under the command of Tsar Alexander I. This stunning victory was crowned with the Treaty of Pressburg on December 26, 1805, and the Holy Roman Empire was dissolved the following year. Napoleon's armies had succeeded. The Third Coalition against France had been shattered by the Grande Armée. However, the alarming increase in French power in Central Europe disturbed Prussia, which had remained neutral the previous year. After swift diplomatic negotiations, the Fourth Coalition was formed in 1806, including Russia, Great Britain, Saxony, and now Prussia. With Prussia joining, the coalition armies were significantly strengthened. Yet, defeating Napoleon's Grande Armée would not be an easy task. The coalition armies suffered a heavy defeat first at Jena and later at the Battle of Austerlitz. The French captured around 140,000 Prussians, and about 25,000 Prussian soldiers lay lifeless on the battlefield. The architect of the victory at Austerlitz, Louis-Nicolas Devout, nicknamed the Iron Marshal, was granted the honor of marching to Berlin by the Emperor in recognition of his success. Once again, the French managed to defeat their enemies before the Allies reached their doorstep. However, this victory, unfortunately, would not bring peace to Europe. Napoleon redirected his attention to Poland, where the remnants of the defeated Prussian army had joined forces with the Russians. Thus, the Grande Armée marched towards Poland. Yet, this time, Napoleon's forces faced a harsh winter campaign, and it turned into a deadlock with the Battle of Eylau on February 7th to 8th, 1807. The clashes were intense, and both sides suffered heavily. The Grande Armée failed to achieve a clear result for the first time in this battle. Nevertheless, Napoleon had no intention of stopping. The campaign continued in the spring of the same year, and eventually, the Russian army under the command of General Levin August von Bennigsen suffered a severe defeat in the Battle of Friedland on June 14, 1807. Following this victory, the signing of the Treaty of Tilsit between France and Russia in July ensured Napoleon's peaceful coexistence on the continent. While these events unfolded in the north, Portugal's refusal to comply with the continental system in the south posed a series of new problems for Napoleon. At the end of 1807, the Grande Armée entered Portugal. This campaign, which would last for 6 years, marked the beginning of the Peninsula War, consuming a significant portion of the manpower and resources of the First Empire. Although French forces attempted to invade Spain in 1808, a series of disasters in the region prompted Napoleon to personally intervene in the war later in the year. During this period, the strength of the Grande Armée had reached 125,000 troops.
Austria, however, quickly recovered. Finally, in April 1809, without formally declaring war, they surprised the French by launching a campaign. However, they were slow to capitalize on their gains. Napoleon's descent with the Grande Armée into the region tipped the balance. Austria suffered a heavy defeat at the Battle of Eckmühl. Soon after, the French captured Vienna.
However, the Austerlitz battle, the first defeat for the Grande Armée, took place during this campaign across the Danube River. Subsequently, at the Battle of Wagram, the Grande Armée inflicted heavy losses on Austria, causing 40,000 casualties while experiencing a loss of 37,000 troops. Despite this victory, it shattered Austrian morale, leading to an eventual ceasefire agreement with the signing of the Schönbrunn Treaty in October 1809, bringing an end to the Fifth Coalition. Following this, there was a period of relative calm on the continent, lasting about 3 years, except for Spain. However, diplomatic tensions with Russia were escalating daily, eventually leading to renewed conflict in 1812. By June 25, 1812, just before the invasion of Russia, Napoleon's Grande Armée had become a massive force that struck fear into the hearts of its enemies. The total strength of the army reached 685,000, including 410,000 French, along with Polish, Austrian, Italian, Bavarian, Saxon, Prussian, Westphalian, Swiss, Danish, Norwegian, Portuguese, Croatian, and Irish troops. Despite its imposing size, more than a third of the Grande Armée consisted of foreign units from puppet states created by Napoleon. The campaign into Russia began with the crossing of the Niemen River on June 23, 1812. The rapid advance led by Napoleon confronted the main Russian armies under generals Mikhail Barclay and Pyotr Bagration. However, the continuous Russian retreat aimed at escaping Napoleon's grasp prevented direct confrontations for some time. Nevertheless, this game of cat and mouse would not last forever. The Russians decided to make a stand near Borodino to defend Moscow. The Battle of Borodino on September 7, 1812, resulted in a decisive victory for the Grande Armée, causing heavy Russian losses. Subsequently, the French entered Moscow, hoping for peace negotiations with the Russian Tsar. However, when diplomatic efforts failed, the French, with their hopes dashed, left Moscow on October 19, 1812. During the retreat, the Grande Armée faced repeated harassment by Russian forces along the cold steppes, resulting in significant losses with each city passed and each road traveled. When they finally reached Paris, only 93,000 survived out of the initial invasion force of 680,000. The disaster in Russia had repercussions, stirring anti-French sentiments in Germany and Austria. The Sixth Coalition was formed immediately, making Germany the focal point for the upcoming campaign. Napoleon wasted no time in increasing the quantity and quality of the Grande Armée. However, the entry of Austria into the coalition further complicated the strategic situation for France. French victories continued with a series of battles, including Lutzen and Bautzen, under the command of Napoleon. Still, the involvement of Russian forces would alter the course of the war. The decline in the quality of French cavalry, losses, and the introduction of inexperienced units led to the reversal of French gains. Despite efforts by Napoleon to strengthen and augment the Grande Armée, the situation in France became increasingly bleak. In 1813, the grown coalition forces faced Napoleon's Grande Armée in the famous Battle of Nations at Leipzig, spanning 3 days. The losses suffered by the Grande Armée weakened its position. Napoleon's acknowledgement in late 1813 that the great empire no longer exists, "We must now defend France itself," reflected the severity of the situation. The condition of the army left France vulnerable, and coalition forces took advantage of this, advancing towards the heart of the empire. The campaign began with Napoleon suffering a defeat at the Battle of La Routhière. Despite this setback, the French quickly regained their spirit. In the 6 Days campaign in February 1814, a French force of 30,000 inflicted 20,000 casualties on Blücher's dispersed army, demonstrating a glimpse of the former French vigor. Napoleon then turned south, defeating Prince Karl Schwarzenberg at the Battle of Montereau. However, these victories did not alter France's dire situation. Defeats at Laon and Arcis-sur-Aube further demoralized the French. In late March, Paris fell to the coalition forces. Although Napoleon desired to continue the fight, pressure from his marshals to abdicate began to mount. Ultimately, the defeated and disappointed French leader was sent into exile. However, his exile on the island of Elba proved short-lived. Returning in February 1815, Napoleon, with a renewed Grande Armée, began preparations to re-enter the war against the coalition forces. For the first time since 1812, he personally commanded the Northern Army, aiming to capture and defeat the separate coalition armies led by the Duke of Wellington and Blücher in Belgium before the Russians and Austrians arrived. The campaign, starting on June 15, 1815, initially saw success with the Grande Armée achieving a significant victory over the Prussian army at the Battle of Ligny on June 16. However, internal issues within the French forces and poor decisions by commanders created new problems for the French during the campaign. Emmanuel de Grouchy's delayed advance against the Prussians allowed Blücher to regroup after the defeat at Ligny. Finally, Blücher and his army, along with the Duke of Wellington, confronted Napoleon and the Grande Armée in the Battle of Waterloo on June 18th, resulting in a definitive defeat for the French. With no remaining Grande Armée to protect France or Napoleon, this marked the beginning of dark days for both. A crucial factor in the success of the Grande Armée was its superior and highly flexible organizational structure. The corps of the Grande Armée, consisting of various army units and support personnel, formed self-sufficient entities that could operate independently. When combined, these corps created a massive force that was relatively smaller in size compared to its combined armed forces, but was versatile. These corps could conduct entirely independent operations, often fighting in close proximity to each other and moving within a day's march of one another. The corps, positioned closely like the segments of a snake emerging from the same body, posed separate threats to the enemy. Grande Armée excelled at surprising rival armies through dispersion and sudden attacks. The success of Grande Armée was also attributed to its meritocratic approach. Unlike the armies of the old regime and other monarchies, progress in the Grande Armée was based on proven ability rather than social class or wealth. Napoleon aimed for a meritocracy in the army, where any soldier, regardless of family background, could ascend rapidly to the highest command levels. Indeed, the Grande Armée was largely designed to function in this way. This system applied equally to French and foreign officers. Around 140 foreign officers had achieved the rank of general in Napoleon's army. In summary, the Grande Armée, shaped by Napoleon's ambitions and aspirations, fought across Europe from the Atlantic to Russia. It experienced numerous victories, occasional defeats, and, above all, established itself as one of the greatest war machines in history during a tumultuous era.